One of the remarkable things about reaching mid-career of what I call like the power of after stage of life is that we have something incredibly valuable to offer. Decades of relationships, experience, and the ability just to bring people together around a meaningful purpose. And sometimes that purpose grows out of life's greatest joys, and other times it emerges from its deepest heartbreaks. And today's guest, Mike Gommel, is a powerful example of that. After the devastating loss of his son, Joe, to epilepsy, Michael and his family transformed their grief into a mission that's touched thousands of lives. Because Joe loved music, even though epilepsy left him nonverbal, they chose music as the vehicle to create hope, awareness, and funding for epilepsy research. So through that mission, they've inspired legendary artists, including Cheap Trick, the Go-Go's, Tears for Fears, the Bangles, Guns N' Roses, and many others to perform in the middle of Wisconsin winter. In fact, Madison, Wisconsin, I've been there before. I've done a concert there before, and I am so excited to hear this story. They've raised more than $2 million since 2011. And so today we're going to talk about overcoming loss, discovering renewed purpose, and how your greatest challenges can become the foundation for your most meaningful impact. So stay tuned. Many talented mid-career professionals reach a point where they ask, what's next? They have experience, skills, and wisdom, but lack a clear roadmap for their next chapter. We provide the framework and guidance to help you get there. Check out our courses and offers. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Well, hello. I'm so excited to have Mike here with us. Mike, do you go by Mike or Michael?
When my 88-year-old mom is mad at me, I'm Michael. To the rest of the world, I'm Mike. So
same with me. It was, actually I go by Deborah now, but that's usually what my mom said. And people call me Deborah, Debbie, Deb, whatever. So, well, I'm just thrilled with your story. And I did a brief introduction, and I've performed, of course, in Madison, Wisconsin some years ago, and very fun that people would come there in the winter. That's quite something. That's right. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's quite something.
I understand. And actually, through our conversation today, you'll see we kind of lean into it with Joey's song and play it up because it's our weather,
It sure is. It sure is. So I love to have my guests introduce themselves, because I can go on. And I hate those introductions when people do them on me. I like hearing right from the artist. So give us a brief background and a little bit about you. I mean, you just totally have the artist look, too. I just love it. I've worked with a lot of artists. I've been in this field for a long time and transition all the so that was great. So go ahead, and would love to hear from you.
Sure. So my name is Mike Gommel, and I live here in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, actually, which is about 5 miles outside of Madison. So we just say Madison because it's easier, with my wife, Nori, and we have 2 grown kids. Julia is 26, Sam is 24. You can't see it in the shot, but one of our 3 dogs is right over here sleeping next to me. Despite the artist look that I have, I actually spent most of my professional career at IBM, believe it or not. To quote George Carlin, it's the same hair I always had. I'm just wearing it in a different location now. But I retired, and now I do what we're going to spend a little time talking about here today. We have a foundation, a charity called Joey's Song, and it's in memory of my 5-year-old son, Joe, who passed away back in 2010 after suffering from a rare form of epilepsy called Dravet syndrome. And so we put on these shows with some friends of mine every year here in Madison in January to raise money to fund research grants so that those really smart people can mix the test tubes together or whatever the heck they do in the labs these days to have that moment where it's going to stop people from suffering, futures being lost, and families going through what we went through. So that's it. That's what I do now. I'm technically retired, and I do this.
That's great. Well, on this show, we talk about what you're going to do next. And I just love it. I love telling some of these stories. because there are so many people doing amazing things across the country, across the world, and it's fun to tell the stories. It's very
Yeah.
inspiring, and I think everyone has a little something different and what has driven you. And you went through incredible loss. We
Yeah.
have 3 sons. I can't imagine, boy, losing a child. How
Yeah.
difficult. So,
Yeah.
um, what were some of the things that you and your family went through? If you can share a little bit of that,
Sure.
because it's just a heartbreak. But
Yeah.
how did you cope with that? How did your other kids cope with it?
Yeah. Um, there's no owner's manual to this, right? There's no standard operating procedure for going through something like this. Not that it's a consolation, but Joe's illness certainly had us prepared. This is something that we knew could happen. It's
Mm,
not that it makes the circumstances any better, as opposed to a out of nowhere kind of loss like this. But it was still devastating. And
mm,
my wife and I each handled it in our own different way. She's much more emotive and emotional, and she was Joe's main caregiver. And we can talk a little bit about that down the road here.
mm,
Um, I took care of Julie and Sam, his older brother and sister. We had to kind of divide and conquer. Joe's Dravet's required literally 24/7 care. My wife had to stop her career and do all of those things. So she went through a lot of the things that people go through when your main focus in life is all of a sudden, for 5 years, Joe was her every day, basically, and then he was gone and gone in a terrible kind of way. I, on the other hand, and my wife is a Puerto Rican from Chicago. I'm a German from Wisconsin, and we both fit each of those stereotypes to the nth degree. I was like, okay, let's get down to business. What are we going to do about this? Let's solve it, kind of stuff. Um, and that's how I tend to handle things. And it can be kind of frustrating for my wife, Nori, sometimes, because sometimes, as I've been told, you just need to listen and not try to solve every darn problem that comes up. But I'm one of those guys. Regarding Julia and Sam, they were. I mean, I'm gonna figure this out. Julia would have been 8, and Sam would have been 6 or 10 and 6 or 10 and 8 around when this happened. They certainly knew um, that their brother had a pretty devastating affliction. At that point, they've been out in the world and they have friends at school and all that. And nobody else had a brother that every once in a while the ambulance would had to come because he was having seizures that wouldn't stop and all of that type of stuff. And they both kind of processed it differently as well. I don't know honestly, Deborah, at age 10 or 8, how you process death. I don't know that. It's not my expertise, and I'm sad that I had to experience it once, but I'm glad it's not a regular part of my life. Um, they have both matured well into it and both now have very fond memories of their brothers. My wife is in the process of putting pictures out around the house, and that involves a lot of pictures and videos that Joe is in. And there was a time when those were a little too tough to look at and watch, but now we look back and we smile and laugh. We watched one the other night singing at grandma's birthday, and the whole family was there. So, in the moment, you're really just trying to do left foot, right foot, right? Move on, move forward, do things in a healthy way, but also in a way that lets you process what you've been through. And you just do the best you can, and then you try to be supportive of each other. I consider Nori and I very fortunate. Most couples that lose a child don't come out of it intact, as we have. That's a big, another casualty of losing a child. And, we came through it together with each other. And, here we are 16 years later. And uh, just I just continue to aggravate the you know what out of her like any good husband does, and we move forward. So,
Yeah, I love you mentioned that because many times at mid career, halftime, there are other things that happen.
yep,
And, there's a lot of splits that happen right there. And
yep,
you had one just even more devastating in losing a child. So, I mean, good for you for
yeah,
weathering through it. As you look back at some of those things, sometimes it's kind of hard to believe that you made it.
yeah,
But
yeah. It
yeah,
feels like it can feel like another person in another life. It
yeah.
absolutely can. Yep.
Yeah. So that's just a reality of it. So,
Yes.
well, thank you for sharing that because there's really nothing like that of just losing
Yep.
a child and and the memory, you've kept the memory on. And I love if people are watching the video, they could see behind you, they've got Joey's
Yes.
song everywhere. So
Yep.
how great. So, and what do you wish people knew? About epilepsy,
Yeah.
what I know and what I've known is very, very little,
Yep.
because there was a boy in one of my grade school classes
Yep.
and the teacher thought I was kind, so she sat me next to him, and it scared me. It just scared
Yeah.
me every time, and
Oh,
he'd end up on the floor, and
yep.
I just kind of back away. I didn't know. It was
Sure.
very, very scary for me. So, what do you
Yep.
wish people knew about this?
Yeah. Boy, we could turn this into a 10-part miniseries, but
Yeah.
I'll try to be concise on it.
Mhm.
First of all, the most important thing to know is it's very common. It is not the rare affliction that people think it is. 1 in 26 people will develop epilepsy in their lifetime.
Wow.
There's a couple different ways I have people visualize that.
Mhm.
You think about your neighborhood that you live in, and let's say there's 4 people in every house in your neighborhood. That means every 7th house is gonna have somebody with epilepsy in it, right? That's how common it is. Or if you're a sports fan, go to your local football team and go to your stadium, and since I'm terrible at math, I always pretend the stadium has 26,000 people in it because that's the only kind of math I can do. But that means 1,000 of those people are gonna have epilepsy or develop epilepsy in their lifetime. So, number 1, it's extremely common. Number
Mhm.
2, there's not just one epilepsy, it's the epilepsies, right? There's a number of different causes of it and a number of different, as many people as there are that have epilepsy, that's the combinations of causes and manifestations, right? It can be caused by a head injury. A lot of our military and first responders develop epilepsy because it's
Mhm.
real easy to get banged in the head when you're doing those kind of dangerous jobs. And so it can be caused by head trauma. It can be caused by tumors, both benign and malignant. It can be caused by misdevelopment. Let me take 2 steps back and before I go on with that. Epilepsy is the brain. Think about it. You and I are of a certain age where we remember computers when they first came out, and you would get the blue screen of death when something was
Yes.
going on.
Yeah.
That's my layman's analogy of what, and that usually meant that the computer was trying to do 2 things at once that it couldn't do, and instead of ruining itself, it would just shut down. That's what it was doing. That's my layman's interpretation of epilepsy.
Mhm.
The messages are crossing, and the brain can't, and I don't know if it's 2 or 12 or 1,000, but it's the brain and the body's way of saying, "Nope, something bad is going on. We're just gonna shut down. I'm gonna stop you doing I don't know what's causing this, but I know right now we're in trouble." Right?
Mhm.
Which is what a lot of things that the body does, in other situations too, right? It takes care of us when we can't. So if you keep that in mind, there's just as many causes of epilepsy as the way that it manifests itself. The body can respond in different ways when it needs to shut down. In Joe's case, his was a chromosomal. The sodium channels in his brain that
Mhm.
sent the messages through weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And so things would quite often conflict and his body would shut down. And his were in what people refer to as grand mal seizures. That's the phrase people use. The real phrase for it is tonic-clonic. It was what people think of, kind of the shaking, the rigidity that comes with it. There's lots of different ways it manifests itself. There are some people that just stare off into space. Those are called absent seizures. Same thing is going on. Um, and that's the way that their body reacts. There's others. I worked with a gentleman. I spent a little time at the Epilepsy Foundation, and some of the folks there had epilepsy. And his way was, and this was amazing. He was conscious. He was kind of out of it, but he was conscious, and he could only say the word yes. That was his response to
Mhm.
everything. So, of course, you
Wow.
would go up to him and say his name and say, "John, are you okay?" And he'd say, "Yes." "Are you sure everything's yeah?" After a while, you learned that you had to ask him a non-yes or no question that he couldn't answer that way. And then his seizures would resolve themselves and he would move on. So I wish people knew that it's more common than you think. I wish people knew that it was a defense mechanism of the body That's kind of what's going on again in my layman's terms. And then of course there's the usual things. It's not contagious. Please learn what you should do if somebody has a seizure. All of those types of things, and realize that even though epilepsy is an ailment of the brain, it's not causing the person to lack by definition, lack any mental acuity or something. They may have other things that slow them down a little bit, but they're just like you and me. There's
Mm.
no, stuff going on in there that makes them different. And as you mentioned with your grade school thing, empathy and sympathy and understanding are the paths to
Wow. I just got this huge education right now of just all
it.
just I mean, things
Yeah.
that how many people, suffer from it
Yep.
and the different types, just kind of and I usually always write an article that goes with these, so I'll do a little bit of a deeper
Yeah.
dive
Yeah.
to make sure there's resources, included here, but I think it's very important. Part of what I do is educating,
Yep.
and it's just really, really important, for people to at least understand, because we never know who we're going to be around.
That's right.
And especially when you've got now, I mean, I'm at the point with grandkids, and when you
Yeah.
have that, there's other issues and things that can happen. So you want to make sure that you're prepared as possible. So um, now let's get into a little bit of the charity, because
Sure.
it's quite something that you would take that grief and those many years of care and all that you had to go through. And then finally, okay, it's over.
Yep.
So at least that part, but you're still grieving. You're still all of that. That doesn't
Oh
just
yeah.
go away. But what made you think about really starting a charity and the process of that? And let's just start about like how you started, and then we'll talk
Yeah.
about maybe what you would have done maybe
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's a question. First of all, one of the huge benefits of what I do is I get to still keep talking about my son, right? That's I didn't think about that when I started, but as I sit down and go, man, I'm here I am 16 years later, and I got people asking me about Joe. That's pretty cool.
Mm.
That's a
Yeah.
really great side effect from all this. But
Right.
um, so how did it start? I actually thought about doing something even before we lost Joe. Um, his prognosis wasn't at the time and still isn't a whole lot better for Dravet's kids. So he was going to require 24/7 care, and it was going to be a lifetime of needing help. Um, but at that point, and so I thought there's got to be something I can do. We still use this phrase in Joey's song to help the next family, right? Somebody is right now, as you and I are talking, Deborah, somebody is sitting in a neurologist's office with a child on their lap, hearing things they don't understand, being scared to death, and having
Yes.
no idea what tomorrow is going to be, right? And
Wow.
they need to know that there's people out there fighting for them. Um, they need to know and understand that and realize that they're not alone because it can be very lonely. Epilepsy, unlike many other disabilities or diseases or whatever, however you want to classify it, you can't see it unless somebody has a seizure in front of you, right? So it's
Mhm.
kept in the dark, right? Somebody has muscular dystrophy or MS or any of those things, there are physical outward signs of it. Plus, if you put the fact that until 100 years ago, we still thought it was witches and demons and, all these other things that were causing this, or lack of self-discipline, or all the other things that were thrown at people that had a seizure disorder. So it feels like it's something that they need to know. It can be very insulating. You kind of, corral the wagons, and we did the same thing. So by doing something outward like this, it lets them know that, yeah, it's okay to talk about it. There's people fighting for you. And that in our case, it's developed into there's relatively famous people fighting for you. And they're saying the words out loud and they're using the megaphone that they have to let everybody know that they're in this fight and that, et cetera, et cetera. So we started to do that. I started thinking about ways to do that even before we lost Joe. Um, but obviously at that point, Julie and Sam were 10 and 8 with a severe special needs kid. We were just trying to make it to bedtime every day, let alone start a charity. Right.
Right.
Um, but my thought was music. And the reason we picked music is Joe's Dravet made him nonverbal. So he couldn't speak. And his understanding was limited, but he loved music. And as I say to anybody that'll listen, he would sing and dance in his own unique way, right? So if you were in the room with Joe and Teletubbies came on or Elmo came on and the music came on, Joe had one mission, and that was to get everybody in the room up and dancing. That was what
Oh,
he wanted to do. That
how
was
sweet.
that was important to him. So music seemed like a logical way to then do this. Plus, sometimes there are the spoils of a misspent youth. Back in the 80s here in Madison, I was in the music business. I did not go on to do that. As I said at the beginning, I worked for IBM most of my adult life, but I had an understanding of it. And I'm a music fan, almost living into the range, but I'm very proud of that. So I don't
Mhm.
fight it. So music seemed a way to do it, and it was something different. Most charities are forced, I say forced because there's not a lot of opportunities to either do golf tournaments or walks or
Mhm.
galas or, insert the kind of stuff that people do. And there's nothing wrong with those. Um, but I kind of had this opportunity to do something else because of my past, and we can talk a little bit about some of those connections that worked. So that's what really led to doing this. And then obviously once we lost Joe, um, my nature is to funnel myself into this. Okay, let's fix this. Let's change this. Let's make a difference. I had never idea. There's an interview I did back when the charity first started, and I said, "Boy, if we can write a $500 check to the Epilepsy Foundation, I'm going to call this a win." And that was how this all started. And, here we are above $2 million later, and it's grown into whatever you want to call this.
Wow. Wow. How exciting. So,
Yeah.
because you started like a nonprofit, was it nonprofit to begin with? And
Yep.
how would you do anything different today? Or do you feel like you organically just grew and you learned as you
Yeah.
went and things went really fairly smoothly?
Yeah. Um, I'm sure there's a million things that I could have done better and differently, but somehow I think actually the ignorance worked in my favor. I
Hmm.
didn't know what I didn't know, right? And so, um, it allowed me to just dream and try things, I think.
Hmm.
That it was I don't know, we actually started out, and I won't go down this path. We actually started out by producing CDs, not concerts.
Wow.
And for back in 2010, right when the world decided to never pay for recorded music again, but that's a
Yes.
whole nother story. So my a buddy of mine, Kevin, who was my executive director for many years, and I just started trying it. Deborah, when you reach out to people and your opening phrase is, I lost my son and I need your help, most people will at least listen to you. They may not be able to help,
Yes.
but they'll listen to you.
Right. They'll
So
listen.
we had some people that were willing to help us do that. So we would sit and plan and say, let's try it. A lot of stuff would
Mhm.
fall through and a lot of stuff didn't. But I think not presupposing the answer one way or the other and making people say no,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
probably was to our advantage. We didn't know what we were asking for was outrageous, or we didn't know if that's not how it's done. And because we were a nonprofit, we weren't trying to scam somebody, or neither one of us were looking to, build a house in Cancun or any of that stuff with the
Right.
gains from this. People
Right.
gave us people gave us a lot of leeway
That's neat.
to do it. So we didn't know what we didn't know, and we tried stuff, and then the stuff that worked, we'd build upon, and the stuff that
Mhm.
didn't, it would jettison off. But you mentioned in it, planning and all that, or presupposing stuff. I think that was to our benefit because we
Mhm.
just we went where the opportunity took us, as opposed to, well, and a lot of times this happens in business. I spent lots of years at IBM. Well, the 5-year plan is to do this, and we're going to do this, and we need it. This will lead to this, and more often than not, A doesn't lead to B, and it certainly
Right.
doesn't lead to C. So you got to figure out where A is going to lead you. So there's probably a lot of mistakes I made, but I'm not sure I would change it just because we ended up where we are now and where the future could take us because of those mistakes. And if we had not made some of them, It might not be the size we're at because we would have been conservative or we wouldn't have, so
Yeah.
I'm not, other than the cause of the charity, I'm not sure I would
Mhm.
change anything.
I love hearing that because people are afraid to step out. They think, "Oh, I don't know enough," or "I don't,"
Right.
it's a huge risk. I mean, you took a risk, but I mean, what did you risk? Basically, is just like, well,
But
maybe nobody'll come or nobody will
yeah,
listen. And yep, I understand the CD thing, and it's just all of that, but it's developed, and how exciting that is. But
yes,
what people, I mean, you're in, you hold this in January, is that correct? Usually,
yes,
uh, how did you get, especially artists? I have performed outside, and I'm in Southern California when it's been freezing cold, with gloves
yes.
on and with a keyboard, with the fingers cut off, with freezing cold. Nothing
Yep.
like Madison, Wisconsin. How do you how do you get those artists to be there? In fact, it's probably maybe it's an off season for them, but
Yeah,
and how
that's
do you
part of the
go
reason.
ahead? Yeah, part of the reasons exactly. But to Madison, Wisconsin, for I mean, it just builds on it. Maybe it
Yeah,
becomes such a big deal to do because
yeah,
now you have a group doing it. But
yeah.
how did you go ahead and get that going?
Yeah, that's it. And you hit on many of those things. Part of the reason we do it is because most people aren't. I mean, everybody's out on the road right now, right? Me trying to
Right.
organize my artists in June and July, it's like herding cats, right? Because
Yes.
everybody's on the road or
Right.
everybody's doing this, right? So that's part of the reason. But really, a lot of this was because. So I mentioned my misspent youth back in college in the '80s. There was another fella kicking around Madison in those days called Butch Vig. And for those people that understand music, Butch produced Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins and Foo Fighters and Paul McCartney and Green Day and, go down the list, right? Multi-Grammy winning producer, has his own band Garbage that has multiple platinum. He's a big deal.
Mhm.
Butch was kind of came in a little bit into the process of Joey's song, but it started out around his schedule, right? Because he's either on the road doing summer festivals, which they are doing right now all through Europe, I think, and then they head down to Australia right now in Garbage. And, most people aren't recording because he's also a producer, right? And most people don't record around the holidays. So
Right.
that was the time that it fit for him. And then as we built on this idea of inviting people to come join us, that all those things also worked with them as well. But then, as you said, once we started to get a core of people that were of relative note and people would come now, and the artist will freely admit it, it's a severe case of FOMO that they have, right? Fear of
Yes.
missing out. They don't want to
Mhm.
not be here. Part of that, again, in that serendipity of us just stumbling into this is when we talk, and we haven't really talked about the bands, but Goo Goo Dolls and Go Go's and
Right.
Bangles and Tears for Fears and Cheap Trick and all these, they're not coming and doing their standard set. So it's not like Cheap Trick comes and does 30 and goes, they're playing with each other in these super group formats, doing
Wow.
doing covers, right? So yes, they'll play their big hit, but then they'll play a Beatles song with the lead singer from this and the drummer from that. So it's also a chance for them to come and do what they love in a
Right.
way that they don't normally do it with people they don't normally do it with for a reason they're not usually doing it, right? So it's
Yeah.
Butch likes to
Mhm.
refer to it as rock camp for musicians, right? They come and
Wow.
do the stuff you would do if you went and did, rock camp. Um, Now, the key in all that, though, that you mentioned is the January part of it. And most of these
Right.
folks are out in LA, Silver Lake,
Mhm.
in
Right.
the
Mhm.
West Coast kind of stuff. So we lean into that. We call our series of, and we do a couple concerts. It's turning into a multi-night thing. We call it Freezing Man. We lean into it, right? So Burning Man, but we call it Freezing Man. And our mascot is a Yeti. And it's like, yep, you're going to come and that's what you're going to do. And so now, like I said, we kind of lean into it. And I should point out, all of these artists, all of these people that get paid six figures to sing their songs, come and do this for free. I don't
Right.
pay any of them a penny, right? So,
Mhm.
and willingly now, as we talked about, I don't even
Mhm.
have to ask anymore.
Wow.
They keep coming back, and they're a family, and we've got text threads, and they play at each other's
Mhm.
shows now, and
Love it.
But getting
Yeah.
getting back to the question you asked me before that, that's because we let the opportunity, we followed what opportunity led us as opposed to it's going to be this and we're going to,
Right.
kind of stuff. So, um, now my artists are my best recruiters. They're the ones that call their famous friends and say, it would probably be a very interesting whiteboard exercise if I went and said, so and so begat, so and so begat,
Mhm.
so and so. And that's how a lot of them are here now. And now they just say, Mike, so and so wants to come, go close them. And that's what I do.
Mhm.
So they're just wonderful people. Artists, by definition, you being one of them,
Mhm.
want to emote. They want you to
Yes.
understand what they feel.
Mhm.
The need for, I want you to feel this, good or bad, right or wrong, happy or sad. That's what an artist does, regardless of the medium, whether it's music, poetry, writing, sculpting, painting, interpretive dance. It's all about expressing emotion.
Mhm.
You
Right.
give them this opportunity to do that, and it scratches where they itch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it, I think.
Mhm. It's creative.
Yeah.
Artists get bored. Okay.
Yes.
It's and it's, you're always looking for the next thing and something
Right.
to engage your mind, there's something a little bit different. So, and also, I mean, showing up with the level of musicianship
Yeah.
together, that's just really fun. When you play with a great band, oh my gosh,
Oh, oh, it's the best.
it's the
I think
best. It's just the
I
best.
I think the other thing that appeals to them, and I will ask them as we're starting these conversations, but
Mhm.
they're used to playing very structured. They do their set, this isn't the
Yes.
Grateful Dead where every night is an improvisational thing. So they're
Right.
used to, and now we're going to play Manic Monday and then we're going to go
Mhm.
into Walk Like an Egyptian and then we'll do Eternal, if you're the Bangles or whatever it is.
Mhm.
This is a tightrope without a net, right? And,
Mm.
you know,
Mhm.
think about this. Think about this. They have a day to rehearse these songs with people they don't normally. They come in on Thursday. We do the
Mhm.
shows on Friday and Saturday. So
Wow.
if they get a chance to run through the songs twice,
Mhm.
that's a luxury. So I
Yes.
also think that initial thrill of when they were playing in the bars and the clubs and you didn't know I think there's a little bit of that in there, but a little bit of that risk is gone because you're on a stage with pros, right? So if
Yes.
somebody, if somebody misses a cue or a guitar string breaks or they forget what song
Mhm.
everybody else will just keep going
They
and
cover. Yes.
yeah, come back and join us when your guitar's
Yes.
tuned again, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
all of things into why artists love it and recommend it to their friends. And then the pièce de résistance on our audience feels that. They see the joy, they see to watch, I am not a musician. To watch these people give a nod and see everybody smile or somebody plays something they didn't and everybody giggles the audience feels
Yeah.
that. I think the audience
Totally.
feels that it comes through.
It
Yeah.
sure does. Yeah, it sure does. And it's so fun when I get to watch, people like that because I know it's
Right.
happening. I understand it. I can
Right.
feel it. And that's such a
Right.
fun part, but again, it's something new, something fresh, and we don't always get that. When you're doing a
Yes.
show, it's a set set, you're
Yes.
doing that same sort of thing, and it's nice, and I think I told my husband this, about a week ago. I said, "I think that's why I'm enjoying writing books because they're different. I'm not writing
Right.
another song. I've got a lot of songs I've written. I'm enjoying something
Yeah.
totally different that I don't always feel very competent. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm like researching, I'm doing all
Yeah.
of this, and it's a challenge. And so when you show up, different musicians and doing songs maybe you haven't done for years, and it's exciting with great musicians. That even makes it because
Yeah.
you're surrounded just with greatness, and and the
Right.
level because they understand the touring, they understand what's giving. So that's really fun to hear about. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
The
Um,
stories I could tell you about the magic that happens in sound check and
yeah.
rehearsal and how they'll go, no, 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 let's do this instead. And again, it's a level that I can't understand. On the third verse, right after the 12 bar run, we're going to do. Let's all and oh, okay, and everybody nods their head. And I'm going,
Wow.
anytime you guys want to speak English, I'm happy to understand it, but that's that's it's a level that most of us mere mortals couldn't understand.
And there's studio people that are just far beyond what and
Yeah,
they do that in the studio. They're there and they hear it, they understand, and they read stuff. It's just they don't have
right,
to rehearse it so many times. They can do it. So
right.
that level, because they're working all the time, that's what they do. So that's
That
very exciting.
yeah,
Very
it's fun.
fun to yeah, you basically put a family together. You have a
Yeah, and I
huge
have,
family.
and
Yeah.
I finally realized a year ago and the artist told me that because the community is actually relatively small, but they may not, but you run into each other at festivals or
Yes.
whatever it is, and so they know of each other, but they may not know each other. And now they get a chance to do more than 3 minutes at the XYZ festival between
Right.
sets. They hang out, we rehearse, we have dinner. We do lots
Right.
of, I can't go into some of the detail, but we do lots of private little things where they jam together and we have dinner and it does become a family. And I finally realized that, like I said, a couple years ago with social media, and I would see so and so hopped on stage with so and so, and I know they didn't know each other before Joey's song, and I'm going,
Yeah.
I kind of do the
Yeah.
that's me,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's great. I'm so glad you got that point all the way through. We had a little bit of a
Yeah,
technical breakup there, but I got you
yep,
all. I got all your full message there of just how great that is. It becomes
yes,
that family, and I mean, you've had like a decade of concerts now. I mean, you
yeah,
really built
yeah,
this. I mean, this has been quite something.
yep,
And for you, as you're looking at this point, because you've had this decade of concerts, you've given, and I mean, what's the future look like? And do you think there is any sort of a cure, or what's happened with
yep,
some of this? Are you able to follow the string of, the exciting thing sometimes is that you can follow, okay, we've given $2 million to this, so now
yep,
they've developed this or they've done
yep,
this, or what sort of
yep,
things have you been able to experience that joy?
yep. Yes and no. Um, because it is, as I referred to it, the epilepsies.
Yes.
There's not just one cause and not just one treatment and not just one manifestation. So Um, I have told myself, and I've told myself from the beginning of this, that especially with the Dravet, which is one of the rare epilepsies that Joe had, when they announce a truly effective either treatment or cure, I will believe in my head that I bought the test tube that the really smart lady in the white lab coat mixed together, and I'm showing my age. I'm sure they don't use test tubes anymore. Everything's computer models and algorithms. But
It's a good point.
nobody will convince me that we didn't buy that test tube. And if we didn't buy that test tube, we bought the other thing that allowed somebody else to buy that test tube.
Right.
So it
Right.
happened. Um,
Right.
and I won't, because we don't fund, and this is a community of researchers that are out there. Like a
Mhm.
lot of this stuff, somebody's working on the genome
Mhm.
stuff, and that feeds into the DNA guy who's feeding into the protein guy, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
Um, but we've part of the way that I can feel like I will be able to kind of pump my chest out is we have focused almost all of our giving on research. So there's other organizations that cover awareness and patient services,
Right.
the Epilepsy Foundation, a lot of that do great work in that. And so we work with an organization out of Chicago called Cure Epilepsy, which is run by Susan and David Axelrod. Axe is on CNN. He was President Obama's chief strategist for a trillion years. And they have a daughter, Lauren, who's I think Lauren's in her 40s now, but was unfortunately, uh, you know, hit with epilepsy back when treatments were very rare. So she's in Misericordia, a great facility, adult care facility. But anyway, they focus completely on research, and they help me figure out the research grants. Because if you handed me all these research grant proposals, you may as well hand it to Javier, my dog over here, with the
Yeah.
value I could bring to it. So they
Mhm.
say, this is good, this isn't. We've given them the lion's share of our money to a lab down at Northwestern University in Chicago called the Carvel Lab that's doing genetic stuff, because that feeds into the kind of stuff that Joe had, right?
Mhm.
that would be where the treatments that would have benefited him would have come from. So there's enough connective tissue there, Deborah, where I feel like Yeah, I have had those moments where I feel that way. But the future is, unfortunately, current situation. There's cuts in federal funding is a big part of research. These
Mhm.
research communities, right?
Mm.
And we're going through some really tough times with some cuts in that area. So what felt like an add-on in the past, now I feel like we're trying to fill in gaps, us and some of the other organizations that do this. So, it's needed now more than ever. 20% cuts in NIH funding and, 20% across the board to efforts that were already stretched, right? I mean, there's never enough money to do all the research that they need to do and want to do. So you take that and you cut it 20%. And it's not just epilepsy research, it's cancer research, it's all of these things that make us better as a species, as a community. So it feels a little more drastic than it's ever felt. Um, and that's why having some of these people with recognizable names and
Yes.
recognizable
Right.
art
Right.
helps. I mean, I lean into the fact that people
Right.
come, they may not know about epilepsy. They'll know about epilepsy when they leave the concert. They
Yeah.
may not know about it before.
Yeah.
But if they want to come to see Johnny Resnick
Mhm.
sing Iris, or they want to come and
Yeah.
sing Kurt Smith sing Everybody Wants to Rule the World, and give me
Mhm.
their money to come in and buy a T-shirt and a raffle ticket and bid on,
Mm.
works for me.
Our United States population, you give them a chance, they're
Yeah. Yep.
extremely generous, and I
Yep.
think there's a lot to that. I mean, I know we need government funding, but, our population, you just have to let people know. You have to be able to gather people together and do as much as possible.
Yep.
And I think we end up just depending on somebody else. But you're right into the firing line there, and with the passion for it. We need to hear from people like you.
Yeah.
We need to. I'm so happy to have you on
Yeah.
podcast for people looking up these organizations
Yep.
because we have an extremely generous people want to be able to give to things like this, and I think that's very, very positive. And as we kind of start winding this up, we could probably talk
Yep.
another hour about this,
Yeah.
but but we won't. Um, but what's next, like for you? Are you growing this? Is that
Yeah.
what you're doing? And maybe other avenues. What's next in your sort of mind of where
Yeah.
you're going?
It's 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 gonna sound really basic. It's to raise as much gosh darn money as we can. And
Okay.
there's lots of different ways to do that. I've got a great community of people around me that offer opinions on that, and there's lots of different ways that we could do that.
Hmm.
But it is
Hmm.
literally, well, there's a couple things. I have been informed that I'm not gonna live forever, even though I
Hey.
thought I was. My immortality is not guaranteed. So part of what I'm doing, I turned 65 in a couple weeks. Hang on,
Oh.
while we all gulp at that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's to try to put this foundation in a position where it can go on. See,
Yes.
the thing about medical foundation or charities, though, is your goal is to go out of business,
Mm.
right? It's
Yeah.
to raise so much money that it's not needed
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
But we're not that close with epilepsy because of all of the
Mhm.
permutations of it.
Right.
So it's to put it in a position, as I mentioned, I have 2 kids. Julia's 26. She's getting her master's degree and is going into the medical field, and my son
Mm.
Sam is 24, and he got his music degree. So I got musicians and medicine in my family, so they may be interested in doing this after I'm
Mhm.
no longer around. But the idea is to put it in a place where it can grow if they need it to, or it can continue to spin off money if all they want to do is manage the funds, right? So
Right.
it's to grow it in that, and that growth, Deborah, is not that we already are at a level of artist I never dreamed of, but it's to get it to that next level. Those people that we
Yes.
refer to by just their first name, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
Beyonce, if you're listening, Madison, January 8 and 9. Um, yeah,
I'd love
but
it if Beyonce was gonna listen to this. That'd be
you and
great.
me both. I might have to have a serious talk while this is going down a whole nother path with my wife if Beyonce comes, because I'm going to tell her to leave Jay-Z and come.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, but that's the goal, is to get it where right now we do amazing amounts of money for a small community like Madison, Wisconsin.
Right.
I
Right.
want to be able to do the same amount of work or geometrically grow it and have it in Austin and New York and
Right.
Chicago and all these places where musicians are, Nashville, LA,
Mm.
and have it be even larger amounts of money. So that's, I mean, I am still,
Yeah.
even though I've got a wonderful community, I'm still a one-man band. We are looking
Yes.
at Joey Song International headquarters here in my basement. And my dog Javier is part of my executive assistant today. So
Okay.
I'm limited by the time that I have in
Yeah.
my day to do all of this because Madison's got to stay, it's got to be the cornerstone of it. So, but I would love to take this to every city where the musician be able to go to the musicians as opposed to them
Mhm.
having, so go to
Wow.
Nashville. So all Brad Paisley has to do is throw his guitar in the back of his
Yeah.
Prius and, go to LA. So Dave Grohl, same kind of thing. And maybe
Mhm.
we will someday. Um, but it is to turn this into the kind of thing where people automatically buy their tickets without knowing who's playing because they know it's going to be super awesome. Got that
Right.
kind of in Madison now already. And to get it to the point where artists are calling me to come and play because, they've heard such great things about it, et cetera, et cetera. That's the future. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of in that, how many years I'm already take naps twice a day because I'm so darn old. How much time and energy do I have to do all this?
Mm.
But I've been given this opportunity. I guess I'll close on this. I don't feel like this is a calling, but I feel like it's an opportunity I've been given that I would be a jerk if I didn't
Mhm.
follow through. Because there's lots of charities in the world that would say, "Oh my God, you can pick up the phone and call so and so, to raise money." Uh,
Mhm.
so I want to make sure that when it's all said and done, I feel like I made the most of the opportunity I've been given.
I love that. That is a great phrase for us to tie this up on because people are waiting for some sort of calling or they're
Right,
waiting for some sort of passion. What am I going to get when how am I going to hop out of bed and be so excited?
right.
There's something right in front of you. There's an opportunity somewhere. Look
Yep,
for it. Just and see what comes. Relax about it. Relax about that. And I mean, you can't out of tragedy, but
right.
look where it's come. And I love the goals of just being able to expand. And you're going through what most any entrepreneur goes through.
Right,
How do you
exactly.
expand? It's just like what I listen to with the podcasts that I listen to constantly. I love listening to the stories of entrepreneurs
Yep,
and startups and but it's exactly you're going through the same steps, so it's not that much different. You have a nonprofit, but it's not that much different. So it's somebody taking up the mantle, whether it's a couple of your kids or whether
yep,
it's gonna be someone else coming alongside and say, "You know what, Mike,
yeah,
I think I can come alongside and I can really come on as like a CEO
right,
of this and really make this happen." I mean, we all need that. I have
right,
skills, but yet I have to bring people around me because
right.
somebody else has the organizational gene that I does not. I do not. So
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
have to do that.
right.
So yeah, that's a great phrase. So,
Yeah, it is very much like having spent a quarter of a century at a big company like IBM in management roles. I understand all of that stuff, and
yes,
it's very much like building, and it is. We built an organization from
yes,
what are we going to do to where it is today,
yeah.
and there's a little added tweak to it when you're doing it in the nonprofit world because I'm have to be the steward of this money that people have given me. Not that you don't have to do it in the business world, but there's a different
Mhm.
expectation when you have an
Yeah.
investor community,
Right. Right.
stockholders, shareholders of take some
Mhm.
risks, go for it. And not that people don't want me to take risks here,
Right,
but I
right.
need to be much more careful because the people that bought that, not everybody that buys that concert ticket or that t-shirt
Mhm.
can afford it as much as some others can. So I've got to be just as judicious with that person that doesn't go out because of their epilepsy, but wanted to support this, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some additional stuff on it, but I think it's offset by the fact that people will help me because of the cause that might not if I said, "Hey, I'm opening up a nail factory. Do you want to," those are two different things,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
it's about understanding the checks and balances of it and looking at
Right.
what works in your favor, what doesn't, and
Mhm.
understanding that it runs both ways.
Right. Well, What a great conversation this has been. I've loved it. I really love this platform. I mean, years ago,
Yeah.
there was no way we could do this.
Right.
So, Mike, give people a place. That'll be in the show notes. It'll be all of
Yeah, yeah.
people can connect with you and with Joey's song. But if they're just listening, how
Yep.
can they get to more information about
Yep.
Joey's song and about what you do?
So the first thing I need to tell everybody is there are some people that are allergic to coming to Wisconsin in January. It is a known disorder. We live stream the show for free.
Wow.
So even if you're in Bangalore or Poughkeepsie or,
Mhm.
East Anglia, you can be
Mhm.
a part of the Joey Song family and see what we do. So that's the first
Great.
thing. So if you've been sitting there going, "Well, I'm not going to Madison in January," um, you can still be a part of our family. So what that means is we use the same tools that everybody else does, all the social media. We are Joey Song. Remember to do the 2 S's, Joey Song, on all the platforms, YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all of those things. So you can find us. So make sure you follow us, not just like us, but follow us on those. Then you'll see what we post. We also have a mailing list on our website, which is, wait for it, joeysong.org. I know, amazing, huh? What consistency can do. We have a mailing list on there. We don't spam you. We don't try to sell you aluminum siding. We don't do anything other than keep you informed of what we do. We run different contests and auctions and stuff during the year. That's how we announce new artists. If you do both of those things, follow us on the socials and sign up for it, you will be kept in the loop on everything we're doing. And, we're always adding new artists. We may be adding somebody that you really need to come to Madison to see. So,
Wow. Cool. Cool.
yeah,
I'm so happy we were able to do this and work
me
this
too.
out. And well, thank you so much. I mean, we're across the country and being able to do this. I'm just,
Yes,
on another side of the country. So thank you, and thank everyone for listening.
yes.
Make sure that you're getting all of our updates as well, because I make sure that you get every single podcast every week that happens from the Power of After show. And so that you link up with them with this goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. My name, Deborah Johnson. There are so many thousands of us that, if you look up Deborah Johnson, you're going to find a million others. So that's why you go to my website. So thank you so much. And really, Mike,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. I love your setup is great. It's just fun. It's very artist-like.
Yes,
Yeah.
it fits the vibe, doesn't it?
It
Yes.
sure does. It definitely fits the vibe. So thank you so much for taking your time to do this. And really, I've learned so much about epilepsy.
Yep.
Make sure you get the article for those listening as well. You don't want to miss a single article. So thanks again, Mike. And I will look forward to seeing everyone else on a future podcast. So make sure that you connect and don't miss a single one. So bye-bye for now. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I love bringing you insights to help you maximize your skills, resources, and experience at mid-career and beyond, so that you can make your next chapter your most impactful and purposeful yet. I'm Deborah Johnson, and I can't wait to be with you again next time on the Power of After show.